Greetings, everyone. I'm your host, Chris Garris, joined today by my co host, Allison Leach Hyde, and welcome to the Transporter Room. We're beyond excited to introduce the legendary David Livingston, a visionary director whose work has left an indelible mark on the Star Trek universe. Best known for helming iconic episodes across Star Trek The Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, Voyager, and Enterprise, David's masterful storytelling and innovative direction have shaped some of the franchise's most memorable moments. With a career spanning decades, his creative expertise behind the camera has earned him a revered place in sci fi history. We're thrilled to dive into his incredible journey from crafting compelling narratives to bringing the final frontier to life. Now let's beam in David.
Hi, everybody. Well, I got to do this thing right. I never get it right. That introduction. Who are you talking about? That is crazy. And you did say legendary, and I admit that I am a legend in my own mind. But thank you. That was so gracious and heart, and it got me. So thank you for that.
Oh, you're welcome. But it's the truth. I mean, we'll get into this more. You have directed almost I know both of our favorite episodes, like almost all of our episodes that we've ever watched. And I do want to thank you for taking it to just for giving us your time to join Allison and I today to just go over, your history, what you've done, and a lot of Star Trek podcasts, they immediately, want to go straight into discussing Star Trek, but I don't do that. I prefer, I want to know more about you, your career, what got you in the industry, and then we delve into the Trek. So, what got you into the film industry, and how did you get this career going?
Um, my first year in college, I went to University of California, Santa Barbara. I wanted to study political science. And in my freshman poli sci class, the professor asked a question, and everybody in the room, their hands shot up except for mine. And I knew at that point that I was out of my league. So I decided to transfer to USC, University of Southern California, and study film. So I went into their film department, and I always loved movies, and I was also doing a lot of photography at that time, and I had a passion for it, and I said I want to try this and see if I can make a career out of it. So uh, I finished film school and went right to work as a gopher, go for this, go for that, and worked my way up and got into production from a management side. I was a production manager and an assistant director in what's called a below the line position, which is below the line people are all the people who do all the work and don't get paid the money that the above the line people get because they're the ones who get all the money. Above the line are the producers, the directors, and the actors, and all the creative people. But I started as below the line and continued on that until and had a varied career prior to joining Star Trek. In 1988, end of '86, um, I was doing movies of the week as a production manager at ABC Circle Films. It's now a defunct division of ABC. And the production exec got a call from Michael Schoenbrunn, who was the head of television production at Paramount, and they were looking for a production manager for a pilot they were doing of a Star Trek show. They didn't even have a name for it yet. So I went over and interviewed and got the job as the unit production manager, it's called, on the pilot for this upcoming Star Trek pilot. And I started in there in late January, early February of '87. And that was the beginning of my life on Star Trek.
That's amazing.
Hmm.
So much fun. I'm kind of like below the line too in where I am in my career now. And it's true. You do all the work and then there's somebody else there that gets all the limelight. So I
Hmm.
think that's pretty funny.
But
So
there, before I let you go, there's something to be said about being below the line, because once you're above the line, it's also your head that is the one that gets that could roll. You know, that's
Bingo. Again, when I became above the line, because of my training below the line, I knew what was going on. And especially as a director, I knew more about, and this isn't being vain. I knew more about where I was in the day and what I needed to accomplish as a director because I had that production experience as a assistant director and as a production manager. So below the line is a great training place.
I believe it is because, like you said, you get to see everything, so that by the time you get up and then go over, you know maybe the pitfalls that you can avoid, and also how much you can push the line to before the executives come downstairs, being like, "Why are you doing this?"
Perfectly stated, and I pushed a lot. Got me into trouble, but I had a reputation for they call it pushing the envelope, and I always thought, why not? You're put in this position, go for it. Don't be safe. Safe is boring. Go for it in anything.
well, I wanted to ask about, you mentioned it already a little bit that you had already been doing photography in college. Did that start in college? Did you start like as a little kid doing photography? Has that always been something you've loved?
It's always been something I've loved. After I stopped in show business in the early after Enterprise ended, I became a professional photographer for 20 years, and I've also done a lot of personal work, and I've had uh, several exhibits here in Los Angeles of my work. So it is a passion for me. I love to see. I love to look. Um, it's if I have a gift, it's it's to see stuff in a particular way. Uh, I'm great. I'm grateful for that gift. I would have loved to have been a musician. That would have been my first choice. A dancer would have been fantastic, although the career is very short lived. I would have loved to have been a writer, but I'm grateful for the gift of seeing that I have.
Did you play an instrument since you brought it up?
I have a beautiful piano over in our piano room, which uh, fights me every note. I am I am awful on the piano, but I love it, and I love music. I love
The
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 Beatles.
Beatles?
They're my go-to. I'm a huge Beatle fan, and my wife would probably be aghast knowing that I'm wearing the Beatles T-shirt on the podcast, but she happens to be out right now. So, but
Nothing wrong with that.
it's genuine. It's me. So
hmm
you get the genuine me. That's one of my photographs of the Hollywood sign, which is painterly. It was a Photoshop has certain uh, ways to change things, and that's one of my. I live underneath the photo of the Hollywood sign. I live in a 1923 or 1924 Hollywood land home. The Hollywood sign used to say Hollywood Land, and when this and it was a failed development. Our house was in the first part of the development, and then it went bankrupt uh, during the stock market crash and the depression in 1929, and the sign went into disrepair, and the village or whatever of Hollywood said, no, don't tear down the whole sign, just take down the words land. And they kept it up. And it's now the most famous sign and 9 letters in the world. Uh, we live on a street that ends at the entrance to the gates to get to the Hollywood sign. And I see nothing but tourists 24/7 walking up the hill to visit this iconic place, and it's a pilgrimage. It represents dream. It represents a dream. It represents Hollywood uh, and the magic that Hollywood is. So it's inspired me. I've probably taken 10,000 photos or more of the Hollywood sign. It was in my face. So yeah,
Yeah, I was gonna say, wasn't that one of your photography shows? Was
yeah. I've had a couple
Hmm,
on the Hollywood sign.
cool,
Hmm,
Yeah,
very cool.
thank you.
you're welcome. Well, and I wanted to ask because I thought I had heard and read some stuff that at one point in time, uh, John Billingsley convinced you to be part of the Hollywood Food Coalition.
I um, pre-COVID in 2019, my wife and I and our dog Lulu would take walks in the neighborhood, or we go out to Santa Monica and walk along the Palisades Park, which is a beautiful park that overlooks from an elevation looks over the Pacific. And I decided to start doing my personal photography. I had not done it for years, and I have a magical instrument which is which is the greatest photographic instrument ever invented, especially for street photography. So I went out and started taking photos, street photography, in around June or July of 2019. I came home and would look at my edit of the photos that I had taken, and the vast majority of the photos were of homeless people. And it's obviously it said something to me. I didn't realize it at that moment, but it was in my face. Usually, you walk by all these, you don't want to look at this stuff that's going on in the streets and on the sidewalk and in the park. But the camera forced me to look at it, and I said, "Okay, you're telling me something, so I'm going to pursue it." So I spent the next 6 months photographing the homeless all around Los Angeles, and I decided to have an exhibit of my iPhone pictures. Everything was taken exclusively with the iPhone. And John and I are friends, and uh, I mentioned to him that I had this exhibit, and he said, "Well, how would you like to partner with it? I'm the head of the board at the Hollywood Food Coalition, which provides meal service uh, to the homeless in Hollywood, as well as food distribution to other nonprofits in the area." And I said, sure. So we partnered on the first exhibit that I had pre COVID, which was in December of 2019. And then again, I had it in January and February, and then early March, maybe, of 2020, right before all heck broke loose. And I partnered with the coalition to present my interpretation and view of the homeless in Los Angeles. And it was so gratifying because people, some people wept at the exhibit. And I had a certain point of view where I photographed them in bright Technicolor. Some people may take objection to that and say, you're fantasizing it and you're not realistically portraying it. Uh, to me, the black and white photography of homeless people, I've had enough of. I wanted to present them in in what I saw was their life, and that they are no different except by their circumstances. And I wanted the color and the vibrancy to attract the viewer, not push them away. And and by and large, the reaction was positive to that approach, where people, some of my friends actually cried during the exhibit. So what could be more gratifying to that? And because of my involvement presenting it with in association with the coalition, I actually joined the board of directors per John's invitation for 3 years, and subsequent to that, we put on an 8 hour Zoomathon called Trek Talk, uh, which I participated in the first 2 years, and then subsequent to that, other people took over. So it was a very gratifying, fulfilling experience to participate in that charitable activity for those 3 years. and to be able to present my photography as well as participate in Trek Talk. Okay, I'm done.
I
That's the
really liked the bit about how you chose to do the photography in color because it's true. Most photographers do take pictures of the homeless in black and white, which does make it feel like it's not as real, I would say for me. So seeing it in true color and in the situations that they're in would be much more um it would bring it more to the forefront to my own personal emotions. So that's really cool.
was hyper reality. It was a bit over the top. I'm all about that. But uh, in association with the photos, I also had these little. Uh, Apple has a. You can copy because I edited everything and put them into Apple Photos, and you can explain where the picture was taken, the time of day, and all that. So I had a card for that, and then I had a lot of interview cards or explanations about the people that I met to try and personalize them. It wasn't simply the photographs. It was saying, okay, here's this guy. And this guy, for instance, this guy had a cat. And the cat's name was, say, George. Well, the guy that I was interviewing also said, my name is George. That broke my heart. The guy had the same name as his cat. These little blurbs and these little stories really help to um, personalize the individual photographs. It's my magnus opus. I think it was. I'm very proud of it. It was because of the reaction that I got from people. So
Mhm.
uh, kudos to me.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
absolutely. And I had a question that popped up here. Um, Someone asked me, "Have you ever heard of Roger Balin? He's a gentleman that does similar thing about finding the beauty in homelessness and freaks."
I may have, but let me write down his name.
Yeah.
Roger, what is it? Balin.
Ballen.
Good. I'm gonna, if I haven't looked him up before, because I looked at a lot of other photographers, and I'm gonna certainly check him out because I love to see different people's points of view uh, about the situation.
Yeah, the producer shared that with me.
Okay, thank you, Aaron, producer.
Oh, man. Well, I didn't you actually went even more in depth on your photography that I've heard on some of the other podcasts, so that was amazing. And
Yeah, but I have to tell you, my photography career was not as socially significant. I spent 20 years working for Getty Images as a red carpet photographer. So my deal was to shoot celebrities, and I have I have almost 400,000 photos on the site.
oh,
It's it's pretty silly. I
oh,
mean,
That
what an inconsequential career, but it got me out of the house, and I had a lot of fun competing against people half my age. And now they probably be even more so. But I stopped doing that a year ago.
oh,
I'm
wow.
now in between, as they say,
Mhm.
well, that's a huge juxtaposition doing red carpet photography and then the homeless. Like
isn't it?
that's
That's
the
well,
gambit, really.
I am certifiably schizophrenic, so I'm just kidding, just kidding.
But she brings up a good point. I mean, you're seeing literally the extremes from both sides of everything when you do that. And I didn't know you did Getty Images, so I've probably I've probably borrowed a few of your pictures and didn't know they were yours.
Borrow as many as you want. Take the ones that I don't own copyright on.
There we go.
About half of them I own the copyright. Don't copy those, please.
I wouldn't even know which ones. I'd have to look for
I
that.
know. Again, I'm kidding. I don't care what you do. Go for it.
No. Oh, that's great. Oh man, that's a good story.
I have a lot of Star Trek celebrities that I shot on Getty.
I bet. Well, especially since you have a personal, relationship with so many of them, it would probably be easy to get them to look your way, as it were, on a red carpet too.
I'm 40 people standing there screaming at them. And I don't think they have a clue who I am.
Oh, I bet they do. The
Uh,
ones you've directed, I'm sure they recognize your
I
voice.
totally agree.
my friends do. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure any of the actors that have said, "You're doing that wrong," or, "Take
Or you're
whatever,"
doing that great.
or that too. There's a few that have probably been like, he wants us to do it again."
Well, that was my the bane of my existence was doing it again too many times. So,
Well, and this is a perfect segue now into the actual Star Trek stuff because, like I said, people might question, like, am I actually going to talk about Star Trek on this channel? And yes, we do, but I like to know about a person's life before Star Trek and all of that. But again, you know, your career working there at that franchise is what has brought all of the three of us together today.
and I'm so grateful for it. You can't believe the emotional impact that it has on me to be sitting here 35 years later talking about this stuff. And the new generation of podcasters like you, the fact that you started in January and I looked at several of your podcasts. You have done so many. Man, you hit the ground running. Incredible. And there are tremendous podcasters out there. I've done a lot of them. I love doing them. I always accept the invitation. I love talking about Star Trek. I love talking about myself even more. It is so gratifying that there's a whole new generation of people that are now impassioned about this crazy thing that Gene Roddenberry started in what 1966. It's there is no other franchise, maybe Star Wars, that has the kind of impact. And I go to conventions where it's the sacred and the profane. I go to a cathedral. It's a religious. You're laughing, but it's a religious experience. People are dressed in vestments. They're in costume. Guess 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 who has cosplayers? I have I have two people who have plays me. One has me. They wore a fright wig and the color of a sweater that I wear in a publicity photo. And they came up to me at a convention and I said, "Who are you, Albert Einstein?" And he said, "No, I'm a cosplayer and I play you." Crazy. Okay, that's not the best one. The best one is at a random event that I was at working for Getty. This woman comes up who was a publicist, and she said, "Are you David Livingston?" And I say, "Yeah." And she said, "Yeah, I play you at conventions as a cosplayer." And I said, "You play me?" And she says, "Well, not exactly. I play you as Livingston the Fifth." Hmm? And for your audience, the name of the fish in Captain Picard's ready room was a lionfish named Livingston. It was named Livingston by Michael Okuda and Denise Okuda and Herman Zimmerman, who was the production designer, as a slight to me and as a vicious attack on me because lionfish eat live little goldfish. Because my reputation was to be a ruthless production manager and line producer who wouldn't let anybody do anything creatively. And so she built a complete head to toe fish outfit of Livingston and does that as a cosplayer. Now, I can understand people doing cosplaying for characters and other aliens and stuff, and a Klingon and a Vulcan, but for somebody behind the scenes to have two cosplayers, that that is so unbelievably wonderful. How how crazy is that?
That is, you're completely correct. That's completely wonderful. I mean, to have your work be so much of the fandom that we love so much that we're like, no, we want to be you to celebrate your contributions to this thing we love so much. So no, that is fabulous.
That is amazing, and that's gotta make everything you've done in this franchise just more worth it.
Well, um, but it's the interaction.
Yeah,
Do you have time for a brief story?
Bring it
absolutely.
on.
Bring it on.
last year at the convention, I'm walking down the hallway and I pass this wheelchair where somebody's bent over, a young man, early 20s maybe, and I hear him in a very, very soft voice as I'm passing by him say, "Are you David Livingston?" And I'm not going to recreate his word uh, talk or anything, but I turned back in shock and I looked at this guy and he said, and I said, yes. And he said, "I want to tell you how much I admire your work." And at that moment, I lost it. And I was a puddle of jelly. Um, I was Odo going back to his bucket. Um, he was trapped in this chair for the rest of his life. And yet he had the most profound intelligence and communicative skills and 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 gratitude for being part of the Star Trek world. But his IQ had to be 20 points higher than mine easily. And I was so impressed with his his verbal skills and his intelligence was so much greater than mine, and he was trapped. And I was just so infinitely touched by seeing this person. I look over across from him, and there's this woman with this beatific smile on her face, and she's looking at her son. And I'm saying to myself, this is unfriggin' believable that this woman and her son made this journey. Can you imagine what it would be like to have to pull together the physical and the financial and the emotional resources? I don't think they didn't live in Las Vegas. I didn't ask them, but they traveled from somewhere. They had to get on a plane, come to the convention, travel all the way down the hallway at the Rio Hotel, which took 8 million years, and they're out there in the hallway absorbing this whole world. And that one moment symbolizes and is the most impactful moment I've ever had in terms of interacting with a fan, and is symbolic of this group of people that are so invested in the emotional message that the Star Trek world portrays. And I am so infinitely grateful to have been part of this and to be able to sit here and talk about that gift decades, decades later. How magic is that?
Oh,
How
No,
magical is that?
so
it
magical.
is.
I mean,
Yeah,
because
and to have you guys here
a journey.
invested in it as well,
Yeah.
and to present it to more fans
Hmm.
so that they can come and share your experiences, my experiences, and then hopefully go watch the shows on Paramount Plus because
That's
I
right.
need the residuals. That's all that
Well,
matters. I
is
sit
it-
by the mailbox daily and
yes.
You get those penny checks or dollar checks.
I have two checks over here. I won't show them to you, but they're both for a penny. And those aren't the only two that I've gotten for a penny. To generate a penny check must have cost $10 or $20, but I
Exactly.
cashed them.
Yeah.
Huh?
Might as well. They're sending them to you. You should, cash
I
those
ca-
checks. Yeah, I
I,
mean, the stamps are more
Yeah.
than I would imagine the
it's
checks.
crazy, but my union, the Directors Guild, they're tough, man.
That's good. Yeah, as well they should be. So,
I agree.
what made you want to move over from being below the line to being above the line? What was the catalyst for that for you?
In film school, I uh, went to college with a bunch of incredibly talented people, and I was really intimidated. And I had a severe lack of confidence. I made a good student film. It was very well received and stuff, but I had no confidence. Uh, I'm going to name drop a couple of the people. John Carpenter and Bob Zemeckis. I was in school at the same time
Oh,
they were.
wow.
Randy Kleiser, who um, uh, uh, he directed. What's the movie with John Travolta and Olivia Newton-John, the
Oh,
musical.
Grease.
Oh, great.
Grease.
Grease.
And a bunch of other people. I'm going to stop naming names because I don't want to be a name dropper, but I am. Uh, and and I said I have to compete against these people. So I got out of film school and decided to start at the bottom. And then when I got onto Star Trek, Rick Berman developed what was called the DIT School. It was the director. I don't know if you guys have talked about it, but it was the director in training uh, school for people on staff or actors who aspired to be directors. And Jonathan Frakes was the first member of the DIT school and the first graduate. And it proves to Rick that giving people an opportunity in the organization to direct might not be such a bad idea. Um, it's unprecedented what Rick did and the gift that he gave to dozens of people, but behind the camera and in front of the camera, uh, to try and direct and launch their careers. And in the fourth season, fourth season, yeah. Um, I would sit in dailies with Rick, and uh, I would critique the work because that was one of the things to talk about in dailies. And Rick saw that I had a passion for what was going on, and he actually approached me and he said, "Do you want to direct? Do you want to have the opportunity to direct? Do you want to go to DIT school?" He didn't say you could direct. He said, "Do you want to go to school?" So I said, "Let me think about it." Uh, so I enrolled in the DIT school, no tuition, by the way, which was good. And
They pay
uh,
you because you're working while you're doing it.
Yeah.
yeah, well, got to keep doing my day job, though. I was
Yeah.
a producer at the time. So I started in the DIT school and went to observe directors on the set, looked at the script and decided what I might do in it, looked what they did. I always like my way better. That's ego. I went to post production. I did scene study. I would bring in actor people that I knew, and we would do scene study. And Rick would bust me because I would have them come to casting sessions to see if the people who did me as a favor doing scene study uh, to see if they could get a part on the show. And one of them did actually. And Rick called them the Livingston players as a shot to me. He said, "Is that another Livingston player?" But that was Rick's way. And also in conjunction with the DIT school, I went back into therapy for 9 months. I had a kid, and after 9 months, I gave birth and decided that I was uh, in a position where I didn't know if I'd overcome my panic and fear because I do suffer from high anxiety. Uh, and that'd make a good movie. Mel Brooks. Uh,
Yeah.
and and uh, doing the dip school and the therapy. I went to Rick at the end of towards the end of the fourth season and said, "I'm ready. If you're willing to give me a shot," and he did. And I am infinitely grateful to Rick Berman. He is one of the most generous people uh, and that I've ever met, and he always had my back. Uh, he saw that I had the passion and the dedication, and that I would never give up on the job, and that he uh, would depend on me. And again, my gratitude is undying for the guy. I owe him everything in terms of my directing career. So that's how I got started. And the first day on stage, I died and went to heaven. I've never felt more at home or alive professionally. Uh, to me, it was play. Uh, they had to drag me off the stage. I didn't. Somebody once asked me, uh, you didn't want to go home at night," and I said, "No. Why don't we just keep going?" I there my my energy level at lunch. I never ate with the crew or the cast. I go back to my trailer because I had to decompress. I was so amped up that I had to take a breath so that I didn't drive everybody crazy after lunch. Uh, it was so uh, invigorating and challenging in the most positive sense. It it was such a gift, and I knew I had the passion back in film school, but it took me a long, long time to get to the point where I had the offer and the opportunity and the emotional wherewithal, because you have to emotionally commit to it because you're trying to portray emotion. Um, our job is is not intellectual. It's how do you take printed words on a page and make pictures that will emotionally uh, involve and move the audience along, and that's a gift. Um, some people have it more than other people. I've always said that anybody can direct. Not everybody can be a writer, but anybody can direct. They can't necessarily direct well, and and I think I am in the category of uh, I succeeded as a television episodic director, certainly on Star.
I would say so. You have definitely directed many of the
Like,
fandoms and Chris and I's favorite
yes,
episodes. So
absolutely.
definitely think you have succeeded in
Absolutely.
Yeah, but it all starts with the word.
Oh,
It
yeah.
says
yes.
that in that. There's a famous book that starts off that way, and I reckon, especially in television, especially in episodic, to me, the 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 creative power is in the writing, in the writers. And if you look at the credits, the executive producer credits and the showrunners are always writers. That's where it starts. We're nothing without it. I can't direct nothing. I need a template, and I have undying respect. I'm not one of these people who think that they're any kind of auteur or anything. I took the gift that I was given in the words and always said to myself, like Hippocrates said, first do no harm. Uh, so my job was to make sure that I tried to deliver the emotional content of that material. That was my job.
Well, I think you did a phenomenal job of taking those scripts that they gave you and putting it on screen for the fans, like Allison and I, to watch.
Thank you.
I
That's
mean,
incredible praise. You don't. You both have said it like now 10 times. You don't need to say it anymore. I get it.
you
So no more praise, no more
No
kudos.
praise.
Let's
We
get.
haven't started talking about the
oh,
episodes we love.
yeah, we're about
Well,
to hit that part. We're about to hit the
okay. Well,
episodes now.
I'm sitting here. You
Oh,
go
yeah.
for it.
Well,
Take your best shot.
uh, okay, so I have my episode that I wanted to talk about because Enterprise is it's like I always hate to say favorite, but it's my go-to show series. It's the one I can have on in the back when I'm doing something. Um, and I know it's cliche, but I still have to ask how how much fun, or I don't know if that's the right word, but was it just to get to record Shuttlepod One and to have that bottle show with Connor and Dom?
Well, first of all, I had Connor and Dom. So no, but in a in an incredibly positive way because they have a personal friendship. And I think without that, the show wouldn't have been what it was. But because they had that camaraderie and attention, they also have attention between them. Okay. And Dominic certainly feeds into that. That's his nature, right? I mean, he's a mixer. And that works for his character and for the relationship he has with Connor. Uh, they also were. I found out because I've done their podcast a couple of times, and we did one actually on Shuttlepod One, and they told me about how they rehearsed, and I don't remember them ever telling me that, and that was a gift because there was a lot of dialogue and there was a lot of given circumstances, and there was an arc to their characters and about how their relationship had to join together in order to survive. even though they were at odds about their particular point of view of their given circumstance. So let's start with the actors. Then we'll go to Rick and Brandon's script, which, when you look at it, it's horrifying to a director because you don't. What do I do to keep this, excuse me, moving? Because you're trapped in this little tiny space. Um, so I looked at it as a challenge. My thing is is big, broad, blow up. When I left the show, Rick said, "You just want to go off and blow up something." Well, I couldn't do that here, um, but I did take advantage of the wide angle lens, which is my go-to. I see everything in CinemaScope. That's my vision, how I see stuff, not a vision pretentiously, but uh, and and I was able to use that lens to put the audience inside that thing so that you felt the claustrophobia, but everything wasn't in tight close-ups without having a sense of the background and the place in space. So the trick to me was show the environment, but make it claustrophobic. And I think I was successful in that. Um, uh, One of the problems, though, that I had on the very first day up until lunch was when I got into that set, uh, it was all one piece. Usually, when you get into a set, you can wile it, you can pull out a wall or whatever. This thing was a shuttle. If you put two Pratt and Whitney engines on it, it could have flown to Cleveland. But um, so I went to Herman. I called him down at lunch and I said, "Herman, I have a problem. I can't shoot this set because I only have a couple of angles here from the outside of it." I said,
That
"I need
Yeah.
top entrance and the side entrance, right? And
no,
could you take out the
no,
window?
yeah, but you're. I mean, I need to get the camera inside."
Yeah.
Okay, so I called Herman down and I said, "Herman, I need to cut the set in half." And he looked at me and said, "What are you talking about, David? There's a steel beam that holds the whole thing together." And I said, "Herman, I have to cut the set in half. I can't shoot this set." And I love Herman. I've known Herman. I knew Herman 10 years before I even worked on Star Trek with him. I love him. He's a brilliant designer. So he said, "I don't know about that, David. Let me call Tom Arp." Tom Arp was the construction coordinator. And he brought Tom down. We're sitting there at lunch. And he said, "Tom, David wants to cut the set in half." And Tom said, "I can do that." I said, "Thank you. Can you do it at lunch?" He said, "Yeah, I can do it at lunch." Came back from lunch. Now I had a set that could be taken apart. And now I'm inside the shuttle with half of it missing, and I can be in the set shooting this way. And then the other way, take away this part. Now I'm in the set shooting. So it gives you that sense of intimacy that I would have never been able to get. So that was the best call that I made on on the shooting of that.
Yeah.
I
I
completely agree because
agreed.
Yeah.
we
How are
were
you going to do it?
with them. We were in the scene.
Mhm.
You were in the scene with them. Yes,
And e
that
and
was intentional.
exactly, and we would have never we would you cannot tell that you cut the set in half. I figured you were always just inside there with the cameras. Now, I that's cool. I that's pretty dang cool, honestly. And then, you know, their breath was legitimately their breath. That was not digital breath that we saw back then.
No, but that was a bit of a fail because Dominic and Connor both think that the cold helped them. I don't know if it did, but I think it did as well. But we had to not only keep the air conditioning on all the time in the set, in the stage, we had to have these incredibly large portable air conditioning units to uh, create an envelope inside the stage with visqueen that surrounded uh, the shuttle pod and lowered the temperature to the point where hopefully we could see the breath.
Mhm.
It didn't work very well. They had to drink tea, hot tea before the takes in order to be able to. I mean, you
Mhm.
had Connor
Yeah.
and Dominic on, so I'm
Yeah.
sure they told you about that. And my regret is that I always felt bad that to me it didn't allow the actors to, to do their thing without being interrupted with this stupid breath thing, which wasn't worth it. Now, today, it would all be done digitally and it'd be fantastic. So there are a couple of moments where you see it, but look, this was back in the early 2000s, so we didn't have that technology. And we did the best we could under those circumstances. And yet, I do think that the cold help them. You really and the way that Marvin lit it with this blue cast to it really gave it a sense of cold. So for all those reasons, it was okay to do that.
There's nothing quite like torturing your actors too to get a performance out.
Well, I do believe in torturing them. I mean, what about my needs?
That's right.
I've gotten complaints from actors saying, "You forced me to go over there. My character wouldn't do that." And I say to them, "Yeah, but my character said you do. My character my character was the camera, and my character is more important than any actor's character. Okay, because it's choosing point of view. The camera is the point of view of the story at that point. Nothing is more important than that point of view. Sorry, actors.
Well, and I think also there's that meant their shivering was probably legit real, and they weren't completely acting that they were freezing.
Probably so. I don't know if you asked them that.
I did not,
Uh,
but I bet
yeah,
you they were.
I didn't watch the entire episode, but I did look at them just to see to remind me what they look like, and they my God, it's funny. No, they both look great. They're both very handsome men, and I pick on them, but I'm very fond of both of them.
Yeah.
Well, that was my question. That was my episode question. Now I'm gonna let Allison get to her episode question.
Okay. I think I have like three. So
Oh
go
boy.
me. So
Cool.
Power Play in Next Generation is one of my favorite episodes,
Yeah.
and that was your second episode.
Yeah.
So what was it like bringing like Troy out front in a completely different character than she's really gotten to play in the entire series so far?
Marina nailed it. It was terrific. I always loved episodes where we weren't trapped on a ship and or our characters didn't play their normal character. And in Power Play, we got to do that, not full out. And Marina was fabulous. She got hurt on it though, because we did a piece, and I meant to ask her this the last time I saw her at the convention last year, and I meant to ask her. I don't remember asking her to do the fall herself. She had to fall back and landed on her tailbone, and I think she cracked it. It was bad, and I have great regret about that because I never would want an actor to put themselves in jeopardy and depend on the stunt people to keep them to be safe when they do it. But they're professionals for that. So that was my only regret. But she was amazing in it. Colum, Brent Brent was great. I love Brent. I love Brent when he picks Picard up by the throat. That was I didn't know how to do that, and the special effects guy said, "Oh, it's easy. I'm going to put him on a teeter totter, and when Brent does this, I'm going to raise up the teeter totter."
Oh.
You don't know that, but it's the cheapest trick of all, and it
Uh-uh.
worked. It worked.
It
It
was
worked
perfect.
great.
It
But
did.
I'm very fond of Power Play. I got to do my nonsense, and I'm a great. Oh wait, it was Manchurian Candidate was Power Play, right? Yeah. So oh, what did I do in Power Play? I don't think I had an homage in Power Play. Forget it. Never mind. That's cool. Yeah, but Power Play was fun. And was Michelle Forbes in that?
Yes, because
Yes.
her and Jordy were in the
Right,
Jeffrey's tubes
right,
trying to
right.
take him out.
Yeah, yeah. That was great working with Michelle. Michelle was offered uh, the Nana Visitor
Yep.
Yes.
part. You know about that, yeah, to play Kira. But Michelle, during the strike, I was photographing for Getty, and I went to Star Trek Day at Paramount, and I saw Michelle there. And a couple of minutes prior to that, I saw Nana, and I said, Michelle, have you ever met Nana? And she says, no. I said, you've never met you guys? So
How
I
could
brought them
How?
together, and I took a picture of the two of them, and I said to Nana, you owe you owe
you
Michelle big time. And Michelle blew it off and said, no, 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 no. But
Yeah,
I introduced them to each other, which I thought was kind of a cool Star Trek moment.
that is so fun.
that is
Yeah,
really cool.
yeah, fun.
All right. My next one is, of course, I'm going to say, because Deep Space Nine is my favorite Star Trek. I have no problem saying that it's my favorite. I've been saying it for decades, so I'm good with it. So, of course, I'm going to have to ask you about The Visitor because I don't think there is an episode of Star Trek that makes me cry harder than The Visitor every time I watch it. So, Tony Todd was a wonderful choice to play the elder Jake Sisko. And what was also like, how was it? I know that they had done makeup tests on Sirach to age him up, and that wasn't the right move. So we went with Tony Todd. What was like the hiring process for trying to find the elder Sirach?
First of all, Deep Space Nine is my favorite episode, or favorite series as well. For one simple reason, it's the conflict between the characters.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Everybody on the show hated each other in one moment and then loved that same person in the next. And that sense of conflict is is drama gold. It was what Voyager was supposed to have and didn't with the Maquis. Deep Space Nine did it. And for that reason, and the range of characters was so phenomenal. Not just the fact that they were aliens, but their personalities were so disparate. So that show to me was magic. Um, when we were casting for uh, Jake, Elder Jake, um, nobody knew what to do. I remember standing outside the casting office, and Ron Sturma came out, who was Junie Lowry's associate. Um, and I told him, I said, "What are we going to do about this guy, this big guy? This is, I mean, he's the whole episode." And he said, he thought it, he looked at me and he said, "How about Tony Todd?" And I go, "Oh, Tony Todd, I've heard of him. I didn't know him. I didn't. I knew he did something called Candyman. I'd never seen it. I know. Let me rephrase that. I may have known him from Kern on a Next Generation. So I guess that's Lulu, by the way, at the bottom there. Hi, Lulu. Um, so I may have known about him from that, but I didn't know him. If I did, I didn't know him out of Klingon makeup. Sure. Um, so we cast Tony Todd, and of all the gifts that I was ever given, actor or anything else, Tony Todd is the greatest gift that I was ever given. He was, unfortunately, now that he's was, the most giving uh, person and actor that I ever had the privilege to work with. He was more committed than, I'm not saying other actors aren't totally committed, but what he did uh, on that stage floor for the 7 or whatever number of days he worked was extraordinary. Uh, I, I am not. I don't. I never had any friends among actors. Now I do. Armin Zimmerman's a very, very close friend of mine, and as you know, I'm friends with Dominic and Connor, and I'm friends with a lot of the other ones. But I had this personal connection to Tony that I've never had with another actor. He and Rachel Robinson, who played one of the visitors, um, uh, Ira said, "Are you going to rehearse on the visitor?" I said, "Rehearse? You don't rehearse in episodic television." He said, David, you better go rehearse this." I said, "Okay." So Tony and Rachel came to my house and we rehearsed for a couple of days in front of my fireplace, and then transferred that over to the fireplace in the set. And and it was great that we did, because Rachel and Tony were able to connect, so that when they hit the stage four, they already had an affinity and emotional connection to one another. But after decades later, um, I saw Tony in a local market in my neighborhood, and I went up to him, and the decades just melted away, and we hugged each other and had this. It was we were back in that moment. It wasn't about director, actor, or the process. It was about this connection that we had about this emotional story that we both were so invested in. And every time I saw him in that market, he finally moved to Marina Del Rey. Um, but every time I'd see him, we would hug, and and it was so genuine. And I was so uh, distressed and distraught over his over his death. Fortunately, we did a on the Truck Talk uh, show. We did a visitor panel, and Tony was there, and I got to see him there, and that was the last time I saw him, even if it was virtually. But on that panel, Rachel Robinson was there, and Michael Taylor, who wrote the episode, and of course The Rock, and it was quite an emotional ride for me. But Tony was the gift that kept on giving. I make a joke about how my only job in the show was to tell Tony not to cry in every take, because he was so invested. And I learned out. I think I learned it subsequently that his aunt, who basically raised him, had died a month or so prior to the episode, and he was still in deep mourning. And he stated that he used that in, I mean, actors use their own life experience uh, to inform the performance, and it's a soul wrecking uh, performance.
Yeah,
Uh,
it
and
is.
so many people tell me they cried. Rick
Oh,
Berman,
yeah.
who was Rick Berman, was not one to hand out compliments lightly, and when he did, it was always tinged in, I'll say, sarcasm, or passive aggressive. I love Rick, but that was his way. Uh, I was prepping another show when Visitor had aired the night before, and I was up in the office, and I left the show that year when the Visitor was on. I was no longer a producer, so he called me into his office, and I went, "Oh God, what have I done now?" And he brings me into the office, and he closes the door, and he says, "I got to talk to you about something." And I said, "Okay." He said, "I watched The Visitor last night with Liz." I said, "Okay." And he points his finger at me. I think he did. Maybe I'm exaggerating. And he says, "You made my wife cry."
No.
That was a lecture from Rick Berman,
Yeah.
but nothing could be more complimentary from Rick as that, because so many people tell me that they're blubber, and I get it. And it's Michael Taylor, Mike, and Renee Echeverria. Renee also did a rewrite, and Michael acknowledges that Renee added an emotional content to the show that wasn't existing. But again, it started with the word, and without those words, all I had to do was try and put the camera in the right place and let the actors act. again, it was do no harm. I didn't try to do a lot of my crazy nonsense with the camera. I wanted to be there as a not a passive observer, but an observer trying to put the point of view of the camera in the place to best discover the emotional moments. So I get your reaction to the show. It's it's I won't say it's universal, but it's certainly uh, one of the I'm very proud of it. Let's put it that way. And I'm proud of all the actors who got to take part of it. Jonathan West's photography was unbelievable. You don't notice it when you're watching the show, but he takes you on a journey from a dark and stormy night to a bright sunny day over the course of the episode. He lit one of the most beautiful shots in my history as a Star Trek director. Um, it was a scene where Sirach is looking out uh, at the stars through a port window up on the second level of the promenade, and the camera's on his back, and Na comes in behind him, and the camera stays over that, and he then walks up into a tight true shot of them talking, and it's a oneer, which the whole scene is played in one shot. There's no additional coverage, and Jonathan's lighting was unbelievable because you just see parts of their face or just an eye, and it's I think it's my favorite uh, shot in terms of photography in my entire experience on Star Trek. That's the kind of magic that everybody brought to the. Some episodes, everybody reads and says, not that they don't try to bring their A game every time, but they look at that and they say, okay, we get this episode. Herman Zimmerman on the set design. That living room set was phenomenal. Um, yeah, the makeup. Michael Westmore is a genius. I hired Michael Westmore uh, to be on the show, and it's one of my greatest contributions to the show was to hire Michael Westmore. Academy. I was shocked when an Academy Award winning makeup artist wanted to do our show, but he didn't want to be on distant location anymore. He had a couple of kids, and he wanted to be home, so he wanted to take a series, and I said, okay, great,
We'll take.
and
Heck
yeah,
yeah.
he did it for 17 years.
Oh
Well,
god.
and, Star Trek would definitely expand his horizons on what
Oh
type of
yeah.
aliens he would get to do too,
Mhm.
and it'd be every week something new. So I could see how that would be a fun thing to bite on.
Absolutely.
Michael in his office had a bookshelf above his table that were creatures. There were sea creatures and lizards and all kinds of odd looking things. Sea, and he,
Dinosaurs, yeah, all
huh?
sorts. And dinosaurs too. I
Dinosaurs, yeah, he dinosaur
think
exactly. And he
the
would open the book and say, "Okay, let's do that one." He was he was brilliant. What a and then and Bob Blackman's wardrobe for Tony was it was just perfect. I hired Bob Blackman too. I'll take kudos for that. He was wonderful. I mean, amazing. Every single department and Dennis McCarthy's score. Without that score, it's like doing Jaws without John Williams going doo 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 doo. It's the same. It's the same effect. That and again, Dennis McCarthy had his own character, and it's called music, and he brought that in, and it's a heartbreaking. Uh, uh, what is it? Elegiac score. It's unbelievable. The the power of that music. So everybody brought their A plus game and delivered. I don't think I'm leaving out any particular uh, 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 craft, but man, yeah,
well,
that
Kismet happened in that episode. Yes.
and it's not Star Trek. That could be anything. The Star Trek element gives it its frame, but it's a story about familial love, about a son's love for his father, and it's also about obsession. One of my favorite films is Vertigo. And whenever I see Tony's performance, I think of James Stewart's obsession with Kim Novak. He couldn't let go. And when he got know that this woman might be her again, it's crazy. And that's what Tony kept doing. He kept trying to get something that he wanted so desperately and was willing to sacrifice his own creative life for it. It is such a sad, it's first of all, it's a horrific, sad tale to lose your father to begin with at that age, which was so impressionable. And then to, 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 uh, to give your life up in hope to get something back and to sacrifice your creative life. His creative life was as a writer, and he was unfulfilled as a writer. And for both of those reasons, he is such a tragic figure. Jake doesn't end up being a tragic figure because he's able to reset the clock. But old Jake is an ultimate tragic figure where he actually kills himself
Hmm.
the sacrifice for his father. Wow, is
Yeah,
that not drama?
it
It's
is.
It's
drama. Okay, that's it. So I understand what you're saying, um, and I respect it greatly.
hmm
What's the
and
third one?
well,
Oh,
actually,
Unless you have more Voyager questions.
I have a
Oh, sorry.
follow up on the
Yeah, yeah.
visitor real quick.
Oh, sure.
Um, just recently, they talked about the visitor on the Delta Flyers podcast. With Robbie and Garrett, and I think Armin might have been that. I can't remember if it was Armin and Terry was on that one. And there was a question in the group on the disc of the members of the Patreon members is, and I don't know if you can answer this or not, was did Cisco remember, was it Cisco that he wanted to know, did he remember everything that happened? Getting to see Jake grow older and then, give up his life for him. Because we were thinking they're coming back. We think Jake probably doesn't know because he reset the timeline. But did Benjamin Cisco have to live with that knowledge of what happened?
Um, that's a great question. Uh, I did a podcast with the Trek Geeks. They're Dan and Bill are both friends of mine, and we did the Visitor, and they asked me that question. And I said, no, Cisco doesn't remember. And they said, are you? And I was being blasé. I didn't even think about it. I was like, well, and they just came down on me with a ton of bricks. They said, are you out of your mind? Of course he does. And the answer is, of course he does. And Avery tells us that. There's in his performance, and what he says, are you okay now or something? And Cisco says, I am now. I think that's Allison or if you
yeah,
might know the
it's
exact line.
very similar to that. Yeah.
Right. But he acknowledges that, yeah, I'm okay now, where I wouldn't have been had that timeline played out. Jake doesn't. Jake has no clue. But Avery Cisco does, and then Cisco has to carry that with him for the rest of his life, which is a great way to inform a character's development. And Avery was just unfriggin' believable in the show. That's another. I got to take kudos more for myself. I am partially responsible for Avery being on the show. Do you want to hear that? I don't know if you've heard that story.
I have
No.
not.
When we were casting for Deep Space Nine, Michael Piller made a point of saying we want to entertain African Americans uh, as possible. Commander Cisco should have been captain to begin with, but it was commander. And I had done a movie for Showtime as a production manager called Uncle Tom's Cabin, and Avery played Uncle Tom, and his performance in that had left an indelible mark on me, uh, where his performance was so magnetic and mesmerizing and so tragic and so powerful and so enigmatic. And ultimately, enigmatic is the word that defines Avery and it defines Cisco. And that's what makes Avery and Cisco such incredibly complicated, deep, and unknowable characters and people. So I said to Junie Lowry, the casting director, how about Avery? She says, "Oh yeah, Avery. We talked about Avery, and kind of blew me off." And I said, "Yeah, well, what about Avery?" "Well, he's in the Bahamas on vacation." And I said, "Well, so what?"
He'll be not on vacation forever.
Yeah, really.
Yeah, and are you saying that if he's on vacation, he's not going to want to read a script that could mean 7 years of work that will make him never have to worry about money for the rest of his life? Are you saying that he's not going to be concerned about reading a script on vacation? And she looked at me and says, "Yeah, David, you're right." She said, "Okay, we'll send him a script." They sent him a script, and the rest is history.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, and there
That's
was
my little part
Little part
of
of
getting
Avery.
him.
well,
Yeah.
and there was discussion
Forever
about him.
grateful.
Yeah, we are, and I remember stuff about from the get go, and we'll get to her other episode real quick. But was that um he wanted to always be bald and have that like the goatee, but I don't know if it was Ira or whoever was they were absolutely not. Because what was the other show? Was it Hawk or
Yeah.
that he had just come off of, and they didn't want to do that. But
It was idiotic.
Yeah.
It was idiotic. At the end of, I guess my first episode where he was shaved may have been The Visitor. I don't think he was in the Dias cast, but that was so essential. We collectively as producers, and I was on the show for the first 2 years as a producer, we had a hard time understanding Avery. We had a hard time understanding Cisco. The writers didn't get it. They didn't understand what they had in Avery Brooks and how Avery Brooks could inform the character of Cisco. Finally, they did, and it was magic. I'm not saying that we didn't do a lot of great episodes in the first 2 seasons and into the third season, but when they freed Avery visually and wrote to him, that was seminal in the ultimate success of Deep Space Nine. And that hair should have come off earlier, and that beard should have been on from day one.
Gotten that
So
promotion sooner? Yes.
yes, all the
yeah,
above.
yeah, all the emotion.
Yeah.
So it was people get a conceit. Michael Piller, um, uh, he wanted John Wayne for Odo. Well, what could be more opposite than John Wayne from Odo? Odo was this prissy, effete,
Mhm.
uptight guy. He wasn't
Very.
John Wayne. When we were casting, Rene Aubergenois came into the casting section for his first read, and before he opened his mouth, he came in as Odo. Okay, and not the makeup, but the personality, that caring, and that. Okay, he walked in the room before he opened his mouth. Rick Berman kicked me under the table,
Does not.
and I looked at him and I went, "Yeah." It was so obvious. Filler didn't buy it. He didn't want him. He fought against, even after the reading. Rick had to convince Michael Piller that Rene Aubergenois was the right person. So it shows you that the writers and the producers get something in their head about what a character should be. So the sin that Piller had about Rene was the sin that everybody else had about Avery. But they finally caught on. They were smart people, but they weren't smart enough to get it from day one. That was a problem. Okay, third episode.
Okay, my third episode is The Negus.
Yay!
So you got to direct your own story because you've been talking about, you're only you start with the words on the page. Well, these words on the page started with you. So how is it to direct your own story?
Well, writer is a pretty big word to apply to me for that episode.
Well, it's in
I
story by.
Okay.
So
Well, you want the history? I'll give you the history.
one,
I wrote probably 50 story ideas for Star Trek. I drove I drove them crazy. I drove Ira crazy. I drove Jerry Taylor crazy. Jerry Taylor Ira just ignored me, but Jerry Taylor read them and would critique them. They bought two of my stories. One story I wrote was for TNG that they bought. It was never produced. It was a story about uh, 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 Data and Mrs. Troy trapped in a shuttle where they have to work together to survive, thinking that they were going to die. And what were two more disparate
Yes.
characters
Yeah.
than a robot and an egomaniac woman? Um, so they bought that. They never produced it. I think Ron Moore. I remember going to the story conference about it, and Ron Moore, I think, basically hated the idea. So nothing ever happened with it. But cut to Shuttlepod One, and well, maybe sort of it does sort of work as you. I thought it would have been a fun comedy episode with Jeopardy because they're going to die. Okay, so but on the Nagus, I pitched the story about Quark being involved in some nefarious, uh, a big mucky muck uh, convention of all these high rolling business people from across the quadrant. They hated that idea. The B story was Jake teaching Nog how to read. They liked that, and they bought the story idea based upon that. I went to the story break because as the story provider, you get invited to it. I have never been in a more intimidating situation in my life because the ideas that float off of all these creative writer brains, it's not my brain. And to see them with all these ideas coming at you, it's like, whoa, I felt like I was at a gunfight there. It was unbelievable, or a tennis match. Um, it was perfect. And they're throwing out all these ideas. And Philip said, "Yeah, I love this. The great nod. That's great, Detroit. Good work, David. Fine, we're going to do that. But we hate the Quark businessman." And Pillar looks around the room and says, "What are we going to do about that?" And silent. Usually, people are going to come in throwing ideas. And Michael Pillar goes, he speaks up. He says, "Let's do the Godfather." And everybody
Ooh.
went, "Yeah, let's do the Godfather." And Pillar turned to Ira and said, "Ira, over the weekend, write The Godfather."
Oh god.
You have 36 hours.
Right. And that Monday, I may be mixing my days up, but I get handed The Godfather, and I had died and gone to heaven. And in the Nagus, we did the opening scene from The Godfather. We did the actual pullback over the Nagus's shoulder, and he tweaks his ear. He's holding Brando's cat, and and I showed Marvin the lighting. What's his name? The director of photography. How he lit everything with a top light. And at the production meeting, I said to Rick, or I said to the art department, to Herman, I said, "Herman, now when we're in Armin's office, I need shutters on the windows." And he said, "David, we don't have shutters in space." And I looked over him and I said, "Rick, we're doing The Godfather. If you remember, there's these beautiful wooden shutters on the window behind Brando in the opening scene." And Rick looked at me and said, "Okay, you can have your shutters." So everything we did was an homage to that. And Armin, he was the most giving actor. He he just he nailed it, and it was so much fun. I mean, we did a takeoff on The Godfather, and we did an out and out comedy. We we Star Trek didn't do comedy. Deep Space Nine didn't do comedy until the Nagus, and it had high stakes. I mean, Rom was going to throw his brother out an airlock. There was a bomb that almost blew him up. The stakes were high. The Grand Nagus, wasn't going to stand for nonsense. So the stakes were high, but it was a comedy. And Wallace Shawn, uh, I mean, Wallace Shawn didn't play Grand Nagus Zach. He played Wallace Shawn with just a heightened fit. And the only contribution I had in all the writing, other than that story idea, was Zek. That I gave I gave him that name, and Ira called him that as well. But it was all Ira. And in that episode, Ira created the rules of acquisition, and he ended up publishing a book of all of them. And the rules of acquisition helped to define the Ferengi culture because everybody hated Ferengis basically. But if you look at it, they're an unbelievably horrific species. And to me, they're as close to the humans as any other. Uh, Starfleet humans were not us. They were like above and us, right? But the Ferengi were really about us. And the rules of acquisition are a brilliant. They're their Ten Commandments, and they're respectful and honoring their commandments. You can't put them down for that. That's their belief system. I'm never going to challenge anybody else's religious or belief system. That's what they believe. They have to do that. And so do Ferengis. So kudos to Ira for really making the Ferengis accessible as an alien species that are due respect, even if we
Mhm.
laugh at their goofy ears.
Yes. No, it's true.
Yeah,
It if it wasn't for Ira, the Ferengi would not be the loved species that they are in Star Trek.
yeah.
So,
Yeah, and Armin's portrayal of it,
yeah.
Max's portrayal,
Mhm.
Aaron Aaron's portrayal. They 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 brought it. They were able to work through that makeup and bring their own personalities uh, through that, and it's a gift to make that all happen. And Michael Westmore's design of the makeup allowed facial expressions and the eyes to pop through. So it's again the magic of Westmore and the magic of those performers.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and Armin always he always apologizes for the Ferengi and TNG. He's like, "I'm sorry about those."
Oh, they were ridiculous with those whips, and that that was that he should apologize, but it wasn't his fault. He didn't write it. But how magical did they become on Deep Space Nine? There's a and I'll use a word that's ethnocentric, but there's a humanity about every single character who appears. There are no bad uh, people. There's a lot of people who do bad things on, especially Deep Space Nine, but they're not necessarily bad people because they are simply representing their own belief system and what they think is best for them and their species. That's what made this. And again, Deep Space Nine is not start. It's not boldly going where no man will or no person will go before or whatever being said. It's not wagon train. It's Gunsmoke, and 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 that to me is the magic of the show. They're trapped. You can't get away from having to get along to get along.
Mhm.
Is that the term?
Yes.
Otherwise, you're not going to survive. And you got to find a way to give up something to get something. And that push and pull and that tug. Wow.
Oh, yeah.
Great, great, a great canvas to present drama. And that's not to denigrate the other three series I worked on because they all had magic. They all had magic. But my heart belongs to Deep Space Nine.
Well, well, and that's when while we've been talking, I came up with another episode that I wanted to ask about real quick, and we'll just a short one on this episode.
That's okay.
Impulse, because you got to make a horror
Yeah.
movie.
Okay. You're a man after my own heart, Chris. My favorite episode to direct was Impulse because I got to do I call it my nonsense, but I got to do everything that I wanted to do, and that it fit perfectly into my wheelhouse as a director and visually. It wasn't a Star Trek episode. It was a horror movie, and to be more specific, it was a zombie movie. I refer to it as the zombie episode. There's no question about it. It's not Star Trek. It's about people being attacked by zombies. And what makes it magical is to Paul and Jolene Blaylock, because it's not just about zombies coming to attack us. It's about one of the people who is becoming zombified, who is trying to fight and save her compatriots and not succumb to being zombified and having an issue about killing her own people. Wow! That gives the drama its heart. Otherwise, it's just shoot another zombie. Like she is the heart and soul. And Jolene nailed it. He is the most underrated actor on any of the series. Okay, I think Tess was also horribly underrated, but yeah, Jennifer Lee. But Jolene in that episode was unfriggin' believable. The journey that she took us on was phenomenal. But Herman elevated the set. We lit from below. We had smoke and sparks, and I got way too many phaser fires. They say you can have 5 phaser fires there. Well, I had 15. I didn't care. Again, I don't do post production, so they can put in as many as they want. If they want to cut out half the episode, they have to because they're going to lose all those phaser fires. So I just went for it. The stunt coordinator went for it. Um, uh, Having crazy stuff going on and not beating up a zombie and we're shooting them and we had multi levels. I died went to heaven. I had the best 7 or 8 days, whatever it was, directing ever to do that episode. So thank you for your observation about it. But I never had so much fun ever. And the end, my episodes always came in, a lot of them came in short, so we had to put on the last bit. The last scene is an add-on. It was never written, and to me, it's the perfect coda for the episode where Jolene has a nightmare again, and then wakes up where they're at a movie night. Well, movie night is all a nightmare, and I laid out when Brandon asked, he was confused. He didn't know quite what to do for it, and he came up with this idea about a nightmare. And I laid out a sequence of shots for him, and this has never happened before. And I sent it to him, and he put it in the script. My section of the shots and how the drama was. I was so taken by that he took my whole piece there and put it into the movie. So that was cool. Yeah, but that was a great coda because you left on this close up of her tortured by what had occurred and her fear about having been infected by the beryllium and how it was going to affect her as it went on. And the great thing about that was that usually when people got affected by something on Star Trek, the next episode they were okay again. Not Jolene. She became a drug addict, and you could see the stress that was going through her, and she used it and she played it throughout the series. So kudos to her. Kudos to the writers that didn't allow the disease of the week to not have the impact throughout the rest of the series. That was great, right?
It
Agreed.
was.
Yes.
Well,
That was
and you're right. That's the one disease. That's the only one that I can think of where they let her have her addiction, is what you want to call it,
it
throughout
was.
the series until she got
Yeah.
cleaned up.
You.
She got two. Yeah. She
Yeah.
then got that. Yeah.
The
And
Seinfelds.
Yeah.
and who is, if you look at again in terms of impulse, what is, if you're going to have zombies and you're going to have a character taken over by zombies in the entire universe of Star Trek characters, what's the one species that would be the most interesting to see zombified?
Definitely
The
Vulcans. I
Vulcans.
agree.
No
100%.
doubt.
It's
Brilliant,
again
because yeah,
them.
it's against who they are. They overcame that to become who they are. So we're going to put them back to where they started. That was brilliant. I mean, if they had been Klingons, who cares if a Klingon gets on the fight?
It wouldn't have
But when
made
a
any
Vulcan does,
sense.
it wouldn't have made any sense. Vulcans was the perfect choice, no brainer. So maybe it wasn't that great. The writers thought of that because we all thought of, would think that would be great.
We all agreed with
Well,
what they thought.
yeah,
Yeah,
it
we
was a
agree.
good idea because no one's ever nothing's been
Mhm,
done like that since with the
Yeah,
Vulcans that I
right.
could think of.
Sometimes they would have a bad mind meld or
Yeah,
something.
or
Yeah,
Pong, you know,
huh?
or Pongfar, it's
Or
been said.
Ponfar made him a little wacky.
yeah.
But to
That
have them zombified and have one of your uh, uh, main characters have it happen to, that was brilliant. And a lot of people, because I read a lot of forums and stuff, and a lot of people dismiss that episode out of hand because it's a horror movie. It's not Star Trek. It's not part of the whatever the journey and whatever. But not to me. To me, I died and went to heaven because I got to do a horror movie.
Well, that's one of my favorite things about Star Trek is it can be horror, it can be a mystery, it can be a Western, it can
It
be a
can be.
it can
It
be
can be. I'm sorry, I interrupted you. You can name them all.
yeah,
It
no,
can be a story about a son's love for his father. I mean, I could not have worked on any other television series that allowed me to direct the variations in dramatic presentation and story ideas. I got to run the gamut from uh, wacky, stupid, not stupid, silly comedies, action, outer world, other worlds. I did alternate universe stories.
Hmm.
I,
Yeah.
so I did a mind meld where I got to see the horrific effect that the meld actually. We got to go inside a mind meld on a Voyager episode I did. So it just gave me the opportunity to do stuff that I would have never been able to do on any other television.
Oh man, you just said Voyager, and it reminded me of another episode that I'm pretty sure, if I remember correctly, you were the director. Um, and I should have. I wish I had it pulled up. The one with Sulu.
Yeah,
Oh God,
yeah, the anniversary show.
God, what was it called? I should know this
Uh,
by name.
it doesn't matter. It was okay. They were forced into a situation where they had to use elements from the feature and George and it was okay. It was a fun episode and but I just love working with George. He what a character. And my favorite shot on the episode was George is not a big man. He's a little guy, and he's not imposing with his. He has a great voice, but and he always wanted to be a captain. He was always upset with Paramount that they never had a spinoff where he was going to be a captain. Okay, well in this it was called Flashback.
Flashback.
Yeah,
Flashback.
he got to be a captain. So I said the introduction to his character has to be uh, monumental, has to be majestic. So when he on the reveal, the bridge is under attack, and I had a lot of sparks and stuff, and that liquid nitrogen blowing. So what I did was I had a lot of liquid nitrogen. I put the camera real low, and I had a lot of liquid nitrogen blowing in across the camera lens. And I had George walk out of out of the liquid nitrogen into this big close up of him and I've always been very proud of that. And whenever I see him, I remind him of how majestic I made him look. But it's very funny. He's so imposing
Oh yeah.
and he takes charge. He's great.
Well, what I love so much about that episode when I first time I saw it, I was sitting here just trying to figure out, okay, did they I mean, I know the stuff that that y'all did reshoot, but the pieces that were from the Undiscovered Country before we bring Janeway and them on, I'm like, did they reshoot this? Or is it just brought back in? And I thought I read that y'all reshot that whole scene when the Excelsior is getting, hits goes through the shockwave.
I don't know. That's a trick question for David. I'm not now. Now you make me question. All I know is that we used Grace Lee Whitney, who was in that, and we used Boris, what's his name, at the helm. So we did use at least two of the actors. I think those were the only two. Um, but to answer your question, I thought that we integrated footage. We may have used stunts. I think we might. Go ahead.
No, I think you did. You probably integrated and reshot stuff.
Yeah, and we certainly used the visual effects of yeah. So, but yeah, it was pretty clever, and yeah, it worked.
Oh, it did. It was
And
one.
George got to be a captain. So,
Finally. Yeah. Well, um, the only last question I have, well, before the second to last question is, um, and you may have an opinion, you may not have an opinion, um, on how they ended Enterprise, the last episode.
um, I have to admit I haven't watched it, uh, but I understand that they brought TNG into it, and uh, Jonathan's in it, and and Marina, and that it's it's like it's like that medical show where it's all a dream. Am I getting it wrong?
On the
Tell me.
Yeah,
holodeck.
kind of.
They were on the
So
holodeck.
yeah, it's
They're
on
on
the
the so tell me. Yeah, they're on the holodeck, and
Yeah.
what happens? They
So,
experience. Go ahead.
yeah, so the last episode is they bring in, Jonathan, Riker and Troy, and they're replaying. So Jonathan, Riker's going to all the Enterprise, Scott and all of them, asking them basically what should he do to deal with the issue from the TNG episode when they find out about the phase cloak that the Starfleet had been building
Developing. Yeah. Okay.
illegally. And that's and then they showed them going to, they rush through it. So he talks to everyone, the actors, trying to figure out, should he tell Captain Picard about the Admiral and what he's hiding. And then he makes his decision. They have, Jonathan and Marina stand on a balcony as, Archer goes up to make the speech to form the Federation.
Oh boy.
Yeah, you'd have to honestly watch to see.
Oh,
Nope,
I don't know if I want to do that. That doesn't
exactly.
sound good. I know Brandon is not happy with what they did.
Yeah, none of the. I'll be honest. The fan base, they just like, and they kill. Well, and they killed Trip.
I heard they
Yeah.
killed Trip.
So
Yeah.
we all
yeah,
say
Connor's all fine with that because they were canceling the show.
true.
But yeah, I think the crux of it is that it is Troy telling Riker to go onto the holodeck to go through this historical situation about disobeying a direct order from your captain. Is it worth it?
Oh
Should you
boy.
do it? And so
I'm really
yeah,
yeah, that's disheartening. They all owed it to the audience not to do that.
Yeah. Well, the audience, basically, we disown that episode and say that it was just a holodeck
it
program,
was a
and
terrible holodeck program.
yeah, and just in program.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Season 8 of TNG, the only show from season 8.
yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah,
all right. Yeah.
that's not good. I guess I'll watch it one of these days, but
Yeah. It,
not good to hear.
I just was curious if you had known, being that you were on there, but so
Yeah, I only watched my episode.
Nice.
You know what?
understandable.
I didn't watch a lot of my episodes on the air because when you do your director's cut in episodic, certainly at that time, you don't have any rights after that. Your creative input is ended once you turn in your cut. And I would there are there are there are moments in the shows because I watch them all now before I go on these podcasts and stuff, and I cringe when I see some of the changes that were made. Um, Yeah, there's one thing on the Visitor that just makes me crazy. I don't know if you want to hear what it is.
Of
There's
course.
Yeah.
when they're in the when Jake goes into um, where are they? They're in the where Cisco exists. What's it
Oh, yeah.
called?
I don't
Celestial
remember what it's
Temple.
called.
Celestial
No, no,
Temple?
No, 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 no,
no, no,
that's
no, no.
no,
They
Livingston.
they, they
Like,
go
in
in.
a
Yeah,
different
whatever that space is that he exists in. Okay, and it's the white room, right? And it's foggy and all that. And Jake goes there to see his father. It's called something space, whatever. The last at the end of the scene, uh, Jake starts to disappear, and he disappears. I mean, he goes back to our reality, subspace. He's caught in sub. Cisco was caught in subspace. Jake is there now. Jake meets his dad, but then disappears from subspace. They cut to, and I shot it. It's my fault, but they shot the Cisco's reaction of Jake leaving. That should never have happened. We should never have been with Cisco's point of view, watching his son disappear. That that just kills it for me because it's about Jake. It's not about Cisco watching his son. Yeah, they probably figured, oh, we got to watch Cisco be concerned that his son is leaving. No, no, that's not what it's about. It's about Jake, his horror at leaving, and then cut back to our reality. So when I see that, and that's emblematic of changes that might have been made editorially that were the opposite of what you talk about the Nagus. When I did my cut, J.P. Farrell, the supervising editor, who sat in with Rick, and Rick would give him all his notes, and then J.P. would have to go back in and recut the show to the Rick specifications. J.P. came out of the screening and came up and told me. He said, "I want to let you know that Rick watched the Nagus, and he told me to open up every single cut on the show by a couple of frames, meaning that I cut it too tight, and that he didn't like my pacing. And basically, he was saying, we're throwing out what you did, and we're going to go back and re-edit it so that it doesn't go as fast as it did." And I, what are you going to do? I had no choice. Now he was exaggerating when he said open up every single edit, but he was trying to make a point saying, David, you cut it way too, and that hurt because I I spent 4 days in the editing room making it that right. So these are the kinds of things that episodic directors uh, are, I'll say, burdened with because we don't write the script, we don't make casting decisions. The executive producers make the decisions. We don't get final cut. We don't get to go to the sound mix. We don't get to go to the music scoring. We don't get to go to the spotting session. We don't get to go to ADR where you loop performances where you have to replace dialogue. Uh, we don't get to pick the cameraman. We don't get to pick the lighting is mostly done on the permanent sets. We don't get to participate in the design of most of the sets. Only the and very little input into the new sets, the swing sets. So basically, we can only come in and use one tool, and that's the camera, and that's about it. And I never did, and some directors will look at me aghast. I never directed actors. But in the past, they know your they know their characters infinitely better than you do. What am I going to do? Tell them what their motivation is or what their given circumstances are? I expect them to read the script and bring in what it is. And the guest cast is if you cast the right guest cast and they do it in the room, all you want them to do is do it on stage. And if you do stunt cast, we cast Louise Fletcher. I'm going to give Louise Fletcher, who won an Academy Award as Nurse Ratched in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. I'm going to direct her. All I want her to do is be Nurse Ratched. And she did. She brought in Nurse Ratched. I'm going to tell her what to do? No, I never said a word to her except cut.
I can see that. No,
Yeah.
she was perfectly cast and hired for this role. And
Mhm.
yeah, why would you need to tell her what to do? She knows what to do.
It was unbelievable. What what she has going behind her eyes is so phenomenal. And the manipulation and the Machiavellian quality that she had. Boy, I was the first director that got to work with her, and I, I was just thrilled. I was intimidated, um, but the moment she acted, it was I. I don't have to say anything. I don't have to talk to Maurice.
No.
No,
Actually, not.
that's right.
He was
Well,
he was fabulous.
yeah, well, she did a good enough job to make you hate her or not like her.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but
Eh,
she was also again, she was consistent to her religious
Yeah.
correct.
beliefs when they were convenient.
Mhm.
Let me put it this way: she was a master politician.
Mhm.
She no,
Good way of putting
she
it.
she had an agenda, and she was going to fulfill that agenda, come hell or high water, no matter what it takes and who she had to sacrifice to get there. And I won't name any particular current day politician, but she is emblematic of that particular person. She 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 knew what she had to do, and she did it. And damn the torpedoes, full speed ahead. And you better not get in her way, and you better be prepared and be prepared for battle because it's coming at it. And yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah. Love the betrayal
Yeah.
and and the way she played that character. But yeah, you were always like, no,
Yes,
every
exactly.
time she did anything. But it was
Mhm.
wonderfully portrayed.
And I just loved how Kira would just stand up to her. She would not put up with her crap.
Europe didn't put up with anybody's crap.
Yeah.
That's true.
Uh,
100%.
the yeah, the Armin to this day I don't think forgives Nana because he hated the Ferengi. He also she was also a racist.
Mhm.
Um,
Oh,
her Jack kept talking to her about all her boyfriends that had transparent heads and brains and stuff. And Kira said, "How can you possibly go out with somebody where you can see their brain?" She was xenophobic. She was she, she, she was a racist. She was a racist, and okay, she was a racist. But that was her character. That doesn't mean you don't uh, see her as a character, but you don't accept all. Let me put it this way: you don't accept all the qualities about all of the characters. Everybody has good and everybody has bad. Hero was certainly committed to her people and also to the Starfleet ethos, as long as it reflected positively on Bajor and her people, and 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 fought against people who were trying to undermine Bajor, be it Tai Win or
Mm,
Tai, whatever her name was.
yeah.
yeah.
Um,
Kai win.
Tai Win, thank you. Um, but she also had this other side to her, which we don't look on as a favorable characteristic. So again, that's what made the character so rich and so engaging. But again, I love Patrick Stewart, but Picard, he was always Picard except when he went back to inner light and suffered for 5 minutes when he got back on the bridge, and then you never knew about it again.
I know we mentioned it one more time, but yes.
It's too bad. Now, Patrick, if you asked him, he would say that it was always with him, but but it was never in the writing. And a callback to that in a moment of something would have been
We
so
got
cool. I don't know. Huh? Did we get something? Oh, we
we
did.
got one.
What's the
Yes,
callback? Okay, I don't know what show, but good, they did that then.
they
Okay, I'm
did
being unfair.
yeah, in season
Okay.
6. So
Yeah.
next week
Oh,
or 7. Is it 7?
okay.
I don't
Good
remember.
they did that. Good they did that because that was the most profound. Well, outside of becoming Borgified, I mean, he got he got a couple of nasties thrown at him, didn't he? I mean, one was fascinating, the other one was horrific.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and you say, Allison, I know we another episode, but also in a way, and then we'll get to the last one here. Second is they also bring it back a little bit in at the end of Generations, if I'm not mistaken, because isn't he looking for his flute
Flute. Yes.
in the rubble of the
No, no, no.
Enterprise?
He's looking for his
Oh, that's
photo
right.
album.
It's right. It's not that. All right.
He's
But
looking
that
for his
was,
photo
you know
album
what?
of
Okay,
his
cool.
brother and
Uh,
nephew.
yeah, yeah,
I was wrong.
um, yeah. But again, those callbacks, whenever they happen, are a cement and a thread and a cohesiveness that makes the character richer. Because in episodic television, it's episode one, two, three, and when you can tie it together. Now, I'm not a big fan of what Ira did with the war, um, uh, but Ira, I have nothing but praise for him. Um, it wouldn't have been my choice, but I get why he did it, and it's certainly monumental and powerful. Um, but to have threads that the characters can deal with as they go on is fascinating. Although I did get to do one, I didn't direct a lot of Deep Space Nine later, but I did do one in the last season. It was called Inter Armament. It was the Latin for "In times of war, the law falls silent," and that was a really, really good episode and drew on all the warring stuff. And Adrian Barbeau played this great Vulcan, and John. I did my first episode with John Fleck, and I did my last DS9 with John Fleck. I love John Fleck. He is one of the great character actors and so unsung. He can do anything.
Mhm.
He's great. I don't know if you guys know him,
No,
but
I haven't met him.
I mean, you know his work though.
Oh, yes, 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 yes.
I mean, he was Suliban. I never got to direct him on Enterprise, but he did a ton of those.
Yes, he
Mhm.
did. Yes, he did. Oh man, this has been a great discussion. And so I have my last question that I ask everybody. And the audience is probably like, oh, great, he's going to ask that question. But it is what Star Trek technology do you wish existed today?
It does.
You already got your tricorder? Yes.
I mean, come on. I mean, I'm looking at something that is feasible and doesn't violate physics or quantum mechanics, even as we know it today. Okay. The transporter and a wormhole that you can go through or have the transporter transport you, to me, is absolutely nonsensical, and I wouldn't even wish for it because I don't want to be the first person who gets experiment. Well, you're going to do it with unfortunately a mouse first, but I don't want to be the first person to go to expand unless I come back and they gave me hair. Um, but seriously, what Apple has when Steve Jobs says we give people a product they didn't know they wanted, this object unfortunately has good and bad. I mean, we all are. I've done photographic studies of people on the street and sitting on park benches and stuff. We have a restaurant right down the street from us where people wait out in front of the restaurant or at the park bench, and four people will be lined up, and they're all like this. They're not communicating, and and that's the bad part about it. But the ability, and now with AI, to to get immediate connection to whatever information you need, or with people. On Father's Day, I FaceTime my son and got to talk to my granddaughter and looked over at my pregnant daughter-in-law with another kid coming in July, and I'm there. I'm there. I can't be there because they're in Portland, but I'm experiencing it. So experientially, this phone is giving me not only I don't use it as how many people use it as a phone? We all text now. Yeah, yeah, I like to call too, but most of my communication is through text, and the ability to get information to people. I have a whole house project going on. I send them pictures and back and forth. It's a magical device. And what we're doing here,
Yep.
this this communication, we actually, when I see you in real life, I hope one of you will be at the convention or both, maybe. Right.
Yes.
Well, you have to connect with me.
Well,
We will.
Make sure you. I want to see you in person. But look at the intimacy and what we've talked about. This is a real. So it's amazing. It's unbelievable. So that's my answer. I don't know if that's acceptable to you, but
Anything
there
is
it is.
acceptable.
Well, that's
Anything.
my
That's
answer.
well, good. That's a great answer because it's the truth. It's really the truth that Star Trek has created more engineers, space, astronauts, and everybody that does what to make this thing that we have here.
We were inspired by Star Trek originally. You don't know
Correct.
how many. Muhammad Noor. There's so many
Yes.
scientists and astronauts that were inspired as adolescents to go crazy. And tricorders didn't have screens on them that you could see people, did they?
No.
Huh?
Nope.
No.
And
No.
I remember, I remember when the Motorola StarTAC phone came out because it was the first flip style phone.
Yep.
Right. That
And
was a tricorder.
Yep.
yes, that was yes. So, all right. Well, David, thank you so much for giving us your time tonight and just giving us such great stories. I'm speechless at this point.
No, you guys are great. It's my thanks to you because I love talking about this stuff, and you ask great questions. Your knowledge about the Star Trek universe is unbounded, and your passion, and that you love these shows. You picked exquisite shows. You have exquisite taste. You have exquisite taste in whoever directed those episodes that you pointed out. I have to compliment you. You're amazing. So thank you.
Well, thank you so much.
It was fun.
All right. Well, everybody have a lovely evening, and we'll talk to you soon. I will see you in Vegas. Bye.
Okay, see you there. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for watching The Transporter Room. For just $5 per month, enjoy ad-free access to this episode and all previous ones, plus exclusive bonus content. Sign up now on Patreon.